Now, I'm not going to lie. We're talking about, there's things like the World Series.
Yes.
This top 10 is a series.
Yes.
We're talking about our favorite board game series. Should we say these are our favorite board game series, or is just board game series? I genuinely don't know.
What's up, everybody? My name is Nick.
I'm Mike, and I'm undereducated.
We are the Ravensburger. And that's right. Today we're talking about our top 10 board game series, we'll say. This is going to be a series. So these are a series of games that are either like in the same universe, or sometimes they are like sequels to each other.
They're a loose line of games, essentially.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. A line of games that have something in common with each other. And so there's a whole bunch of these kinds of games. You know, games set in the same universe, all that different kind of stuff. So we're going to go through our top 10 favorite gaming series as a whole.
Ziz. Our first up is going to be a loose series that's often referred to as the T series from Board&Dice. They are a number of kind of mid-heavyweight Euros that oftentimes start with the letter T. So you have Teotihuacan, you have Teotihuacan, and things like that. So again, they're not directly related. They're, we have some of the same designers kind of throughout it and stuff like that, but they're not like a specifically named series, but they are, ultimately a bunch of games that we have really enjoyed playing for all of their various reasons. Oftentimes they will have some kind of drafting element or have dice that you are doing. In Tekken, you're drafting dice, and Teotihuacan, your dice are your workers, and as you kind of go around this rondel, you are leveling up those workers essentially to get stronger actions and retire and kind of ascend and move up these different tracks. I just think that each of these games, if they have something in common, is the ability to really kind of maximize stuff. They, whether you be focusing on certain areas and doing certain types of actions or working up a temple track or things like that, there's a lot of ability and a lot of levers that you can pull. And those kinds of games, if they come out and they look like they have a certain kind of weight level, it's from Board&Dice, that starts off with a T, you kind of know what you're getting into, and I think that's kind of a nice, fun thing, and then maybe unofficial series.
Number 9 is going to be the Kinfire series, the Kinfire Chronicles, Kinfire Delve, Kinfire Council. Now, there's a whole bunch of different games in the Kinfire kind of universe, but particularly I'm going to talk about Kinfire Delve, because that's like a true proper series of games that are really, really fun. The Kinfire world is this really beautiful, really cool, thematic world that you're living in. Kinfire Chronicles is like a big campaign game, all this different kind of stuff. But Kinfire Delve is a cooperative game where you have a unique character, the same characters that are like in Kinfire Chronicles. All your characters are going to have a unique deck, and you're basically trying to delve through a deck of cards, trying to get down to the bottom where you're going to find the big boss. If you defeat the big boss, you then win the game. Like I said, everybody's deck is completely unique, and this has got a really cool system that is in Kinfire Chronicles as well, where you can boost each other. So this is a very cooperative game, and it really feels very cooperative, because when I play a card on my turn, everyone else can play a card that matches the color of that card and use their card's boost ability to boost whatever I'm doing. Every kind of round, there's going to be 4 cards out there. These are going to be obstacles or enemies or traps, things like that. And you're trying to overcome one of these cards on your turn if you can. So you're going to choose a card and try to overcome that. And again, you'll play cards to do damage if it's like an enemy or something like that, trying to overcome it. And then when you do overcome it, you will then get some kind of reward. That can be like getting to draw cards. That can be like getting some of your health back. But one of the main things you can get is delving. And when you delve, you get to take cards off the top of the deck and then just put them in the discard pile. So if the reward for completing this obstacle is like a delve 5, we get to take 5 cards and put it into the discard pile. which is really, really great because we're trying to get through this deck kind of as quickly as possible so that we can get to that big boss before we're out of health. If we ever run out of health, we lose. It's really, really fun. I really like the boosting system that is kind of across a bunch of the different Kinfire games because it just really makes it feel cooperative. It really makes you feel like you're helping out at all times. You really strategize and talk with everyone else about what you want to do, what's the highest priority, what's not a priority. It's just really, really fun. There are 3 different Kinfire Delve games. You can kind of mix and match them all together. And it's also really, really nice because you have this big stack of cards that you're delving through, but when you delve through those cards, you just put them in the discard pile, which means you don't ever see them. So you're never going to see the same cards over and over and over again because you might just straight up skip through a whole bunch of them in a certain round. So it's really, really good. I love the whole Kinfire series. All the games have been very, very fun and very, very good, but the Kinfire Delve games are my favorite.
Next up is going to be Unmatched. This is a series of games that are all compatible with each other, or I should say sets for the Unmatched system, where you're going to be able to answer the question of, like, if this person fought this person, who would win? You might have King Arthur versus the T-Rex from Jurassic Park. There are all sorts of different sets, and they are all cross-compatible. This is ultimately a card-driven game where you are going to be maneuvering your hero and potential sidekicks around a map, trying to defeat your opponent's hero before they defeat your hero. And each character is very kind of thematic and has their own style, certain strengths and weaknesses, and that's going to be represented through the card play. If I go to attack, I'm going to play a card face down. My defender can also play a card face down. We reveal, certain effects will take place, and then I will attack for a certain amount, they'll defend, and if my attack is stronger than the defense, I deal damage equal to the difference, and you're trying to, again, knock each other out. So this is a fun game that is really easy to get into and teach, but there are so many different characters, there's so many kind of flavors to explore, seeing how this person fights against this person and that person against that person. There's just a ton of fun potential matchups at this point. I think that's what's really kind of been cool is, like, with how many sets they've come up with now, there's just infinite combinations of potential fights, and you are dealing with myth and legends, you're dealing with things like IP, like The Witcher and stuff like that, and they all kind of work together, so you get these, like, really nutty kind of scenarios that play out cinematically in your head.
Number 7 is going to be the Horrified series. These are a set of 4 games that up until the last 2, you actually could mix and match them together, but now you actually can mix and match the last 2 together, which is very, very cool. But the Horrified games is a kind of monster game, a cooperative game, where you are all take on these unique investigators and you're trying to overcome a certain amount of monsters depending on how difficult you want the game to be. So the very first Horrified, just straight up Horrified, is based off of Universal movie monsters. So Universal, like the movie studio. So you have like the Creature of the Black Lagoon. You have like Dracula. You have the Bride of Frankenstein and Frankenstein. You have the Invisible Man, things like that. And again, each one of these monsters is unique and has to be overcome in a different way. So Dracula will have their caskets kind of around the main board, and you have to go to those caskets, turn in items to smash them, and then that is how you're gonna overcome Dracula. So all of these monsters have different things that you need to do, but they're also roaming around the board, killing like the various bystanders, attacking you and trying to defeat you. It's a really fun tactical kind of like min-maxing, like, oh gosh, is it worth it? Can we just like leave this person over there and be like, bye, sorry. You can do a whole bunch of different stuff. And then after Horrified, they came out with Horrified American Monsters, which is the Horrified system, but now is based around American cryptids. So things like Bigfoot, the Chupacabra, things like that, which I thought was so, so cool to have this kind of like regional version of Horrified. I thought was so, so cool. And then they came out with Horrified Greek Monsters, which is all about the Greek monsters. And then they finally have come out with Horrified World of Monsters, which is monsters from a whole bunch of different cultures. And the last 2, Greek Monster and World of Monsters, you can actually mix and match. The other ones you can't because all of the monsters are on very specific places on those boards, so you can't mix and match them. But the way they've done it with the last 2 is now you put out these tiles at various spots, and that's gonna be where the monster's lair is or something like that. And so it basically means you can start using different boards, which is very, very, very cool. Because everyone constantly was like, I want to mix and match, I want to mix and match, I want to mix and match. And they finally let people do that, which was very, very cool. I love the Horrified series. I want them to keep making them. We have all of them. I just love seeing the new monsters, particularly the ones that are based on various cultures and mythology. I think it's so, so, so cool. I love Horrified. I hope they keep it going.
Next up is going to be a line of games in the Boop series. These are abstract games. The first one is just cats, and you are on a bed, and you are placing a piece, and the cats that are adjacent to it, kittens and cats, I should say, are going to get booped or scooched over a space. And there have now been 3 games in this line that kind of keep that core mechanism of placing a cat or a kitten, moving other pieces, and you're ultimately trying to get 3 of your cats in a row. Now again, cats will boop other cats, including your own pieces, so you have to kind of strategically bounce your pieces into that line to get the victory. Original Boop, you're just on that bed, and then they have Boop, which is a Halloween version, which has adorable little Halloween cats and kittens. And you now have a ghost cat that you can play that kind of just moves across the bed and will cause extra kind of movements and boopings to happen each round, or each turn, I should say. And that's kind of like a fun, like, sort of pre-programmed movement element to incorporate. Then they have the Christmas edition, Boop the Halls, which actually adds multiple levels now as you are in a tree, and it gives you multiple win conditions. You can either get your cats in a row, even including, going across different levels on the tree, or you have ornaments, and if you capture all of your opponent's ornaments and knock them off the tree, essentially, you can win that way. So now you have this other kind of like little thing to track and stuff. You have multiple ways to go for victories. You have multiple things to potentially get distracted by or distract your opponent with. And I really like the kind of evolution of this series and kind of focusing on different holidays. So we have different types of cats and stuff. It's just honestly fun, awesome, cute, adorable, and really a rock solid kind of core mechanism at the center of it.
Number 5 is a series that, gosh, if you had asked me back in 2016 when this game came out, if I thought it was going to be a series, I would have said, what? And that is Great Western Trail, the Great Western Trilogy, or there's even more now because there's a 4th one, because then there's Great Western Trail El Paso, which is kind of like my first Great Western Trail. It's a much more compact version of Great Western Trail. But there is the original Great Western Trail, there's Great Western Trail Argentina, and then Great Western Trail New Zealand. They came out with a 2nd edition of Great Western Trail. And then they also announced that they were going to do one about Argentina and then also one about New Zealand. And then recently, last year, I think it was last year, I don't think it was this year, came out with Great Western Trail El Paso, which again is a scaled back version of Great Western Trail, but it's still very Great Western Trail-y, we'll say. But Great Western Trail is a great game where you are going around a rondelle, which means you're kind of going around in this big old circle. And you're going up to Kansas City, where you are going to turn in a hand of cattle. You are cattle herders, cattle ranchers. You're turning a unique hand of cattle. You're going to get money for that, score points, things like that. And then you'll go back to the beginning. You'll go back through all the buildings, get back to Kansas City, turn in another set of cattle. As you're going through, you will get various buildings that you'll be putting down. You'll get more unique kind of cattle, more powerful cattle. You can hire various employees, whole bunch of different stuff. Then they came out with Great Western Trail Argentina, which added, it's still very Great Western Trail, but added a couple other things. There are no kind of like farmers that you can come across, a new kind of employee that you can hire where you can kind of use their farms. You are now shipping these cattle to various parts of the world. Instead of just keeping them in Argentina, you are shipping them mostly over to Europe. So that's a whole part of the game where it's not, the delivery of the cattle is different. Then there's Great Western Trail New Zealand, which you're dealing with sheep instead of cattle this time, because it's not really a history of cattle herding in New Zealand. And now it's kind of like a greatest hits of various Great Western Trails. There's Great Western Trail, parts of Great Western Trail Argentina. There's parts of like Great Western Trail Rails to the North, which is like the expansion for the original in there. It's kind of this big mishmash of it with some extra new stuff. It's definitely the heaviest of them all, and also the coolest and the prettiest in my opinion. But I really would like all 3 of these games. And then now Great Western Trail El Paso came out, and that's also really, really cool. So I really like the Great Western Trail extended universe at this point. It's become a really interesting series of games that I would never have ever bet that was going to become a series of games. But hey, it has, and it's really, really good.
Next up is going to be all the games in the Terra Mystica extended universe, which includes Terra Nova, Terra Mystica, the original, of course, Terra Mystica Age of Innovation, the newest one, and then Gaia Project, which is more of a departure, at least thematically, because now you're in space and sci-fi. But all of these games come down to you have a faction or a type of people, and you have a home terrain that is where you can exist on. I'm, in the swamps or whatever it might be. And your factions are going to have unique abilities and upsides to them that are going to kind of give a little bit of, direction to your strategy as you ultimately try to expand and build buildings out onto the map, which will unlock various incomes for you. Certain ones might give you more kind of ore to build with. Other ones might give you more money. And the costs for these various buildings and stuff, especially as you upgrade them to higher levels, can become quite steep. Now, the thing that's really interesting is, again, you can only exist on one type of land, or in Gaia Project, one planet type. So if the spaces I want to kind of expand to that are around, my initial pieces don't match my home type, I have to terraform or, change that landscape to my landscape using actions. So there are a lot of things to consider with these games, like where am I going to start my pieces so I can expand maybe easily or as cheaply as possible. As I put buildings out, I unlock income, but if I upgrade to a higher level building, the building it replaces goes back on my player board and covers up potentially some income. So what income and when am I getting them is going to be important. How much effort do I want to put into kind of terraforming and changing these planets or these land types to what I can live in, and do I upgrade that action so I can make that cheaper for myself? There's a ton of things to explore. And you're going to additionally have within each round certain things that are going to score you bonus points. Maybe I'm building the kind of mine, the basic building. When you first expand, you always build that building. Maybe I'll get 2 points this round if I build that special building. So maybe I want to make my focus this round expanding out, kind of building a bunch of those to get some bonus points. So you're trying to make everything efficient, trying to capitalize on current round scoring opportunities, and build and make use of your faction's abilities and strengths to, the best you possibly can. So it's just so much fun stuff. There are so many factions at this point across all of these games. There's really a lot of stuff to explore. Gaia Project is my personal favorite from this series and stuff, but like Terra Mystica, Age of Innovation, they all kind of do their own thing, but there's a familiarity there across all of them with the kind of DNA of the asymmetric factions, the home world or home land type, and kind of how you expand onto this map.
Number 3 is a game/series that I feel like I talk about a lot, and this is the Search for series. So this is gonna be the Search for Planet X, the Search for Lost Species, and now the Search for UAPs. This is a really fun deduction series of games. Search for Planet X, you are trying to find Planet X. We are the kind of mysterious Planet X that's in our solar system that people think is there. You're trying to find that through deduction. The Search for Lost Species, you are trying to find the lost species, and you'll do that by deducing down where all these other species that you're finding are. And then the Search for UAPs, you're trying to find the UAP, which is the unidentified anomalous phenomena, kind of UFO type thing. You're basically trying to find out where that is, again, by deducing stuff. This are all run by apps, and the apps work really, really well. And it's nice because every single game, where everything is on the boards is going to be randomized by the app. So you're always going to be playing a new game. You'll be doing actions, and those actions will take a certain amount of time. It's kind of got the patchwork time style thing where whoever's farthest back on the time track will get to go and take their turn. Certain actions take more time than other ones. And then basically as you do these actions, like on the Search for Lost Species, you are searching by foot. So you're moving around the board, and then you can basically survey for one type of animal. Like I'm gonna survey for these toads. And it says, hey, you found one toad somewhere in there. And you're like, okay, so you start deducing all this stuff down. I've really come to love deduction games as time has gone by. It's a series of games, deduction games in general, that I really used to actively dislike. And now they've become some of my favorite games on the whole planet. And the Search for games are so much fun. At this point, there's 3 of them. I hope they come out with 86 more because I love to play them so much. I prefer to even solo them. So I play them a lot at home. It's just great. I love the Search for series. It's one of my favorites.
Number 2 is the Pandemic series. This is, of course, famously like what got us into the hobby and a lot of other people, our base game Pandemic. And this was, especially early on, one of the games that we were like, oh, there's all these different versions of it, and they were kind of coming out as we were getting into the hobby. That was kind of exciting to see, with expansions and things like that. And then different versions, and now our favorites, Pandemic Iberia, for example. There's legacy games of this. There's kind of like smaller versions, like Pandemic Hot Zone and stuff. There's a dice version of this game. There's ones that are IP-based, including The Fate of the Fellowship, which is a Lord of the Rings-based one that's about to come out. So there's really a ton of stuff in this kind of greater, what they call Pandemic system games. And these games are always going to come down to a cooperative experience where you are kind of fighting against the game itself. In original Pandemic, there are these diseases that are kind of flooding the various cities on the planet. You're going to be drawing out infection cards from round to round, which are going to put cubes, to represent these diseases on the board. But then you're gonna have things like epidemics, which are going to cause the discard pile, what you've accumulated in the infection stack, to shuffle up and go back on top of your deck. So now those things are gonna get hit again, and you can kind of see how things would escalate from there. And it creates a really, I think, unique, fun experience where we all have a separate character that's their own strengths and things, but we have a common goal that we are working toward. And then having to deal with, oh man, we drew these 2 cards and they kind of cascaded off each other. We had all these outbreaks. Now there's all these cubes, these new cities that haven't been hit before. What do we do? Do we try to go for curing the diseases, which is how we actually win the game? Or do we try to treat and manage what's on the board with those cubes so that we don't lose right now and kind of fight for another day? There's always interesting decisions to make with all of these games. And it's really fun to see how, with some things like the Clone Wars and the World of Warcraft versions, how they kind of put in some of those base DNA things of stuff's gonna be coming out onto the board, and how they then change a bunch of stuff up to create a different kind of, cooperative experience.
Number 1 is going to be the South Tigris series. You could choose the West Kingdom series, the North Sea series, or what is going to be whatever the East one is. I can't remember what it's called, or if it has a name yet. But no, it's the South Tigris series is by Garphill Games. And they have done these trilogies of games. And I guess the whole series of the da-da-da to da-da-da Cardinal Direction series is going to be a whole thing by the end of it. But nonetheless, the South Tigris series is a series of 3 games. There's Wayfarers of the South Tigris, which is Mike's number 1 game. There's Scholars of the South Tigris, and then Inventors of the South Tigris. They are not really related in terms of their mechanics. They're actually all very, very different games, but they are still in a series. And that's actually true of all the various Garphill series. Same with the West Kingdom. Architects, Paladins of the West Kingdom, and Viscounts of the West Kingdom are really nothing alike. They're all completely different game, but they like to make these little trilogies, these little series, which is super, super cool. So the South Tigris games are great. They're all kind of based around dice in this this series of games. So in Wayfarers, you're kind of looking up at the skies and you are kind of charting the various stars, and you're kind of going out by boat, or you're walking out all from Baghdad, which is kind of the center of knowledge and information in this era, out of Baghdad. And so you're kind of moving around, gaining these various cards, building out your tableau, and then charting the skies as you go. In Scholars of the South Tigris, you are essentially librarians, and you are traveling around, gaining scrolls, bringing those scrolls into the Houses of Wisdom, and then you're translating them into Arabic, which again is the native language to this area. And so you have to get various translators, and you have to hire them to translate these scrolls into Arabic. So you can have a translator that knows if it starts off in Chinese, you can have someone who can translate it from Chinese to Hebrew, and then someone else can translate it from Hebrew to Syriac, and then Syriac to Arabic, and boom, now it's in Arabic. You get to collect that scroll, and that'll give you some kind of points. It's really, really cool. And then Inventors of the South Tigris, you are kind of this trio of brothers who are inventing all sorts of weird stuff. And it's got this really great shared infrastructure system where One person can think of this idea, then another person can build it, another person can test it, and then another person can publish it. You kind of don't really own anything in this game because everyone can kind of work on everything. It's really, really good. I love this series of games. The North Sea series was really, really good. The West Kingdom series was excellent. And then this one is even better. I cannot wait for the East series because I gotta assume it's gonna be really good. But I love the South Tigris series. I think it's absolutely outstanding. And that's number 1.
So those are some favorite board game series that we really enjoy.
Yeah.
Let us know in the comments. Again, there's so many more. There's so many more we could have named. And I want to hear from you. What are some of your favorite games where you're like, the idea being that like, okay, any game that comes out in this sort of series or whatever, I'm going to very at least take a look at, if not just get outright, because I know I enjoy what's come before. And how are they going to twist things up on this one? That's something that I always think is really cool and kind of really fun to see the innovation from game to game. So those are some picks for us, but get yours in the comments below. We'll see you all real soon.
Bye, Ray.